Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Before we get going on this episode, I want to thank the sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years. I call him the glassing guru, the optics authority. He's the optics manager at GoHunt.com. If you guys have any optics needs at all, whether it be binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, tripods, anything to do with glassing, give the glassing guru a call. You can reach Cody at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. You can email him at optics@gohunt.com, or you can text him directly on his cell phone at 602-399-3699. Ask him any question either by text or by call. I want to thank Cody for all the work that he does with the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. I also want to remind you guys it's application season. There's not a better hunting resource than the Go Hunt Insider. For a free trial, you can go to gohunt.com/jscott. You can also get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card when signing up. I want to thank KUYU.com, KUYU Ultralight Hunting. KUYU is the ultralight hunting gear that I've been wearing since 2010. Go to KUIU.com and you can order directly. It's a direct-to-consumer brand, and they have phenomenal gear there at KUIU.com. I also want to thank Phonescope.com. Use the JScott21 promo code to get 10% off on all orders. Also, Apex Ammunition. During turkey season, the podcast gets sponsored by Apex Ammunition. Go to apexmunition.com. It's the home of the TSS, the Tungsten Super Shot. It's the best turkey loads on the market. Go to apexmunition.com. Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. I also want to let you guys know that are listening for Colorado information. I actually have a few elk and mule deer tags available in Colorado on private land if you guys have an interest. Also doing an elk bear archery combo. Reach out to me at jscottoutdoors on Instagram or jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. Reach out, and for more information I'll be happy to share it with you. Let's get right to this episode. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I'm here in my backyard of Paradise Valley, Arizona. It's a beautiful April day here. I've got Jaryd Bernstein of Vortex Optics, Cody Nelson, the glassing guru of Go Hunt Optics. Guys, how you doing?
I'm excellent, Jay. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Jaryd?
Hard to complain. 83 degrees and sunny.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And,
yeah, and where we're at isn't too shabby, Jay.
Hard to complain.
You're doing good right here.
Jaryd, Vortex Optics is gaining traction daily. Seems like I'm just constantly seeing more growth from the company and more great products coming from the company. How are things in your position as far as being a rep for Vortex, and how do you see things on the horizon, and how is Vortex being received by the public?
Things are going great. You know, I think we're all hooking and jabbing and learning how to live in the world we live in without going too far into COVID and politics. Things are wavy at the moment. I think the industry feels uncertainty in a unique way, and so we see peaks and valleys in that. But as far as company goes, company's doing great. We've seen a lot of Western hunting focus the last 2-3 years, which has been fun for me, fun for Cody.
Yeah. Such a focus on getting outdoors right now, and I mean the whole industry has been incredible, but there's such a focus and there's such a surge, I feel, of people wanting to get outdoors and truly spend a lot of time, and I think, you know, we're seeing it because people are buying stuff left and right.
No, for sure. And one of the things that Vortex does well that's always neat to be a part of is as big as a company as it continues to get, and you know, we and they are obviously thankful for that growth. It's a very nimble company still. So when we want to get into tripods, for instance, in 2021, we do. And yeah, it was certainly a project for years prior to, but they take user feedback, and our engineering team, product development guys run with stuff very well. So it's a neat thing to be a part of, and 2020 was great. 21's
They
just
certainly
looking
have
better.
their ear to the ground for sure.
Don't you think one of the challenges with a company as they grow, with any company, and you can attest with Go Hunt, but with Vortex, you know, coming on the scene, making a splash, and continuing to grow, and one of the challenges that a lot of times you see on companies that grow very, very fast is they lose that ability to be nimble. From your perspective, you know, in it every day, do you see that ability to remain nimble being something that is a real positive in their column, as far as that's why they are pushing the envelope so hard with some of the other companies as far as competition?
I think so. I think their focus on staying nimble has been huge, and the focus on staying humble has been huge, and that's something that I've never gotten an inkling. You know, I've worked with quite a few companies in the industry, or worked at different gun stores, and when growth happens at the rate that you see sometimes, people start getting a little ahead of themselves, and that is just never the vibe around Vortex. And so it's very easy to keep customers happy. It's very easy to do growth projects. Cody and I are in the middle of a giant one right now, and everyone's staying humble and just wanting the best for the overall health of, say, both brands. Right now we're doing a Vortex Go Hunt growth. It could be a Vortex J Scott growth, and just focusing on that but being very humble about it has proved to be worth far more than a growth percentage.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put that.
So
yeah, I've never felt like Vortex was trying to get ahead of themselves and do too much and spread themselves too thin.
Don't you think a lot of that, though, stems from the very top of the company? I mean, not knowing a ton about Vortex, I would think, you know, that leadership, and my perception of Vortex is that they are very strong in leadership, because what I see filtering down all the way down to, say, your level, it tells me that leadership is great.
No, it is.
And
so there's
core value and leadership.
It's preached to the 9th degree. You know, Vortex is still to this day a family-owned company. The family is still extremely involved, rightfully so, right? The key players within the company, the majority of them have been there for a very long time, and the ones that are brought on to levels of management seem to me, and again, I'm just a pawn in the big game, seem to be very well vetted because they jive extremely well with the pre-existing. And so it's been it's very easy to work with our upper management or product development or shipping. There's not a single department that I can't just walk into and say, hey guys, here's what's going on, and like 30 people jump to find a solution. So sure. It's a joy. I mean, I can't say enough good things. And I'm not a good liar, so.
And on a day-to-day basis, you two exchanging, because
that's unfortunate. That's where I will tell you. So yeah, back to the not lying part.
Cody's one of your vendors, right?
Correct.
But you cover a large area. What is that area in general that you cover?
So I service Arizona and New Mexico.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, guys. We've got a Q&A here. I've also just want to get the general vibe going on at Vortex. You mentioned tripods. You mentioned a company that's nimble. You know, the big splash for me lately has been that, you know, the UHDs and how well they've been received. A general question before we get into the Q&A, from each of you's perspective, how have the UHDs been accepted into the marketplace?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, they've been perceived, and the reaction has been strong. That's an excellent piece of glass, period.
Jaryd?
So I judge that question off a couple things. One, how often do I get bugged for a product? How often is it on back order? How hard is it for me to fill it for a retailer, right? Second thing would be, how often am I talked to about warrantying that item? Are we losing eye cups? Are we breaking, hinges? Are we losing focus on one tube or the other? Are we so those things. And then C would be, when I'm at a dealer event, how often does a customer come up to me and say, I just want to tell you how amazing my X product is? And the UHD, I would call one of our top, if not the top performing Western hunting product right now. Guys at events can't wait to tell you how much they love the 18. I rarely find, unless it takes a tumble off of a cliff, a UHD problem from a quality standpoint. And Cody can attest to consistently asking for more. So
100%.
It's been an excellent one.
Yeah, guys are. I would tell you above. There's such a stigma out there. Sometimes people don't like using spotting scopes and looking through one eye, and the 18 UHD has been, along with some other 15s and 18s out there, but the UHD has, 100% covered so much of that gap that instead of using a spotting scope, people want to use a large, power binocular. And the UHD has been really, really strong.
I think for me, the 18 UHDs, when I've looked through them, and it's hard to describe, but the coloration, the vividness of color, it's a different look, but I find it to be a real inviting look, kind of, enjoyable. It's kind of hard to explain, but you could take any manufacturer and look through, and then you look through the UHD, it's just different.
Interesting. And you don't see that in any other 15, or is there anything else that would do?
And I'm not necessarily talking like crispness. I'm not talking about sharpness. I'm just talking about it has a real vibrant color scheme when you are glassing a mountainside, and it just I like that. Do you get people talking about that, Cody?
A little bit. I think that the colors that. I shouldn't say colors. The color spectrum is that they all operate on a spectrum, and some coatings manufacturers in glass, they're taking away color, they're adding color. It's all about their secret sauce. I always see like for me personally, I see a big difference between the color of, say, a Leica and a Zeiss than I do like a Swarovski. I think. Traditionally, Leica and Zeiss have kind of been more along the same lines, and Swarovski, set themselves apart, not in a better way, but some of them add and take away colors, some of them, so it's just different. So with the Vortex, I don't say that. I don't know. I align them more with. Honestly, like I've always thought that they were a little bit more on the same color side as Swarovski than I would Leica, for sure. For 100, Leica is very different to me. It's more of a blue or red light, and if you ask the engineers, they'll tell you that there's a specific reason for that, and so that's a whole other subject. But there is some differences there.
On the UHDs, we all sat during the release and talked and kind of almost guessed about which would be the most well-received and where it would go, 18, 12, 1042, 842, what would happen.
Interesting.
And I think you and I both were leaning toward the 18 being number one, which it, without running a report, I would say it is. But I think the 12 is closer than I expect it to be and that you expect it to be. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. The 12's done really, really well. I think the thing that sets the two apart is you have the 12 and the 10 UHD that have the abaconic prism, and then you have the older Razer HD. And the only thing that, you go, okay, well, the UHD is only because the Kaibab isn't talked about like the Razers are talked about, right? That's what I take from it. So, I think that the Razer 1250s, UHD Razer 1250s and 1856s have completely set themselves aside, but probably more so than anything is the 18s.
And the 18 is doing what we all thought it would do, and you already touched on it with the guys that just simply do not enjoy looking through a spotting scope.
Right.
Their anatomy doesn't like it. They don't like it. They don't want to carry it. Right. Whatever the story is, the 18 is definitely doing exactly what we thought we'd do in that world.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the ergonomics of the 18. If people ask me if it's a price point, between the Kaibab and the UHD, I love the eye cups of the UHDs better. Mm-hmm. So,
guys, let's dive into a few questions here. First question is, good entry level scope for a 30-06 or 300 WM, magnification, and model.
I mean, for me, our SKU set, man, I'd probably go to a 4 to 12. I mean, he said entry level.
Entry level scope.
Yeah,
for
I mean, I'd go to
30-06.
the Diamondback 4 to 12, by 40 with a BDC. That and if you weren't going to do that, maybe go to the next. Probably go into the HS and do a 4 to 16 with a BDC. That's pretty solid choice. You could do a lot with that.
And they'll both be in that sub $500 range. So
Yeah.
that'll get you started for sure.
And we sell a boatload of both of them. So
One question I would have for you, Jaryd, is when you hear the word entry level.
that can mean so much different
Yeah,
things.
I
for
mean,
different
when you
people.
hear entry level, I mean, do you immediately think, well, is the person just looking for the least, the least expensive product that he can get, or do you think this is someone saying entry level like he's just getting into it and he wants to kind of wet his beak? And would your answer be, and I'm curious what your response would be, Cody, after Jaryd, would your response be, well, how much are you going to do, and why are we making this an entry level? You might look at X or Y because you're going to be wanting maybe a little bit more. I'm just curious your thoughts when you hear entry level.
Yeah, I entry level to me stems. I get 4 or 5 more questions I want to ask before I'm going to throw a product out there. Now, in a podcast setting at a table in Paradise Valley, we throw 2 models out there because it's almost I hate to say it's a generic answer because both of those would work, but without asking more questions, that's the answer. Now, questions I would ask if we were at a retailer and you asked me that question, I'd first start with where are you hunting? Because entry level out west is different than entry level in Texas, is different than entry level in Virginia.
Exactly.
So that would be my big one. A, location. B, I would ask about budget, simply to explain where the next tier is and whether or not being another 6 weeks patient getting paid again is worth waiting to get into. For instance, that Diamondback 4 to 12 we just talked about, it's a 1-inch tube. The HS is a 30 mil tube. If you're talking about hunting in Virginia and never shooting over a few hundred yards, then that is not a huge deal because you're not worried about the loss of travel in that erector. If you're talking about hunting out west, that 30 mil tube's nice because you get more travel, you get more dial, right? So just having that conversation of saying, hey, between the $250 price point and the $350 price point, here's the features you're going to gain. Does it make sense to wait? You know?
Yeah, but it's also, it's sometimes I'll just ask a guy, like, are you brand? You can tell most of the time. Are you brand new to this? Okay, like what are you trying to do?
But the brand new guy's the best opopportunity because he doesn't have
100%.
bias, and if you just treat him right the first time, he's going to get hooked on the sport.
100%. But that's the thing is like you're just like asking the qualifying, like, hey man, like where are we going with this? Like, because if you're a new guy but you're trying to shoot 1,000 yards, we're not connecting here. We need to go a different direction.
Right.
So it's all about figuring out where they want to go.
Yeah, geography is huge on that though, because a guy that says I'm only going to hunt South Jersey is a different guy than says I'm gonna put in for Montana and New Jersey and Kansas. Is like, but I need one scope. Then it's like, okay, let's get a Venn diagram going and figure out how to do this for you.
Exactly.
15s or 18s on a tripod for western hunting at 1 to 2 miles away for deer.
I mean, and here's the question, and I've written articles on it, and look, 15s and 18s, it comes down to me. Do you want the exit pupil and the field of view, or do you want a little bit more power? And when you get that little bit more power, is there a fall off in the other two? You just have to make a decision on, and it comes back to that spotting scope thing. Are you just trying to replace the spotting scope? So if so, I might just take the 18. Generally speaking, I've always been a 15 guy, but I always say that now because I always have the quote unquote big guys at my disposal. So we're not, but my thing is Vortex. I take the 18s, and there isn't a 15 available anymore.
And especially with the with the Prism in the UHD at an 18, that just to me is the answer is go that 18 so that you get the better prism, especially at those type of distances on that animal of that size.
And that's fact. I mean, take the better for the longer distances. Always take the better glass.
Yep.
Question here: when will I find the 12 by 50 Razer UHD in stock?
Well, I'll just leave it at this. We are working on it daily, and Jaryd's working on it. And not to get into too much of a, what happened in the past with COVID and shutting down manufacturing. All of us, we're all in the same boat, and we're moving and doing things, so that we can try to provide for our customers to the best of our ability. And I don't really think there's, we're doing everything we can to
at a higher rate than we ever have.
Yeah,
the planning and the thought process going into trying to ensure that the consumer has what they need. I mean, you look at the volume of calls between me and Cody right before the Arizona tags got released. I mean, if you printed my Verizon bill, you'd be like, these two are dating. It's just crazy.
True.
So all the hunting shops, there's a lot of work going into making sure product gets on the shelf, and I mean, even just on the Vortex side, I can't get into too much of the logistics, but they're doing things that we never even thought we'd have to do to get product into the country and into people's hands. And so we're all eating out of the same turd sandwich right now, and we're just doing the best we can.
Speaking of that, though, the 1250 UHDs have been very well received, which has also created an issue of huge demand.
For sure. There's so many complications here, and I get sick of saying COVID, politics, demand.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that's cool and be thankful for is the product succeeding because of its performance. That's great. There are, unfortunately, other factors in that equation now, and so we're all just hooking and jabbing and trying.
Doing our best.
Yep.
Okay, next question. He wants to avoid
Back on that question, just to get, if that person will go onto our website, they'll click on the product, and if it's out of stock at the time, if they will, there's a tab that'll come up, and it'll give them an option to be emailed when the product comes in. It will literally email them the moment it touches our. Now, if there's some other special need or there's some other something going on, I tell that person to call me, and or email me, and we'll start something, and we'll get something taken care of, and we'll do the very best to inform them even ahead of time of it hitting the shop. If I know a week in advance that a shipment's coming, I'll tell them the best of my ability.
And I'd imagine that's where a little bit of that's coming from. Is you probably have a list of people, especially on an item like a UHD 12, that are already on a notify me list. If we get you 10, which I know we've been shipping them to you, just not maybe in the quantity that you would like or that the consumers would like, they're probably getting eaten up quickly on those notify me's. And those guys are probably sitting buying them at red lights, I would assume.
Next question. Want to avoid overscoping. What's the best for muleys out to 500?
I think
I'm a huge 3 to 15 guy in that game.
I like the LHT a lot.
Yep. I would. I mean, if I could hunt with one scope the rest of my life, it would be that LHT 3 to 15. Even a 2 to 10 would be fine out to 500.
Yeah, see, I don't even have to say anything. And
that's a little bit of the.
What he's saying is where people, that 3 to 15, 42 millimeter, the red dot, I mean, and you have adjustable turret. I mean, it hits like kind of a perfect do-all everything of scope.
Razor glass, lightweight, locking turret, zero stop. I mean, that scope is hard to. I don't want for anything when I shoot that scope. So that would be my that'd be my go-to for that.
Where are Vortex scopes and binoculars made?
All over the world. So we have a complete line of American-made products now. We have stuff that's in coming out of all different countries in Asia. There's all over the world.
Question here about Vortex entering into the tripod market.
Yeah,
how's that gone?
It's going extremely well. So 2021, we released an entire new line of tripods. Those tripods have a new head on them, and the majority of those tripods are carbon fiber, which has been well received. Obviously, with carbon fiber comes a price point. And some of the initial reaction was there was a little bit of, whoa, didn't realize they were going to be that price. But when the feature set starts being talked about, for instance, the Ridge View, in that $499 price point range, with a two-way pan head, is on the upper end of a carbon fiber two-way pan head tripod out of the box. There's no doubt about it. But with a 22-pound max load capacity, with only 2 legs instead of 3. Now that's 2 extensions. To be clear, not a
correct.
So it is still a tripod.
Not a bipod.
I said that to somebody, and they were like, "Why'd you guys come out with a $500 2-leg tripod?" It's like, whoa, time out. But the point there is that it's a little faster to deploy. It's a little easier to adjust. From the city, you can get the stuff a little quicker. It spreads out extremely far. But having that load capacity has been like, okay, wait a second, I'll consider it because I'm clearly getting more than I thought I was getting. When you get a guy that just simply shops by price without reading a spec sheet. So
I got basically the whole system about a month ago. We released them, and I could tell you that the questions have been through the roof. Mm-hmm. At first, notice of them, I mean, they're quality. They do a really nice job. The twist locks are easy to function, to retract, and to deploy and retract. They have that 1/4-inch turn and locking system. Look, when I open them up, you're always like, hey, what what am I going to get here, and what's happening, and you at first glance you're like, oh. Well, they did that right. I mean, that was pretty good. So,
first shot out of the gate with these tripods, there was a lot of, I haven't seen them, but I've seen pictures and heard about them. There was a lot of thought that went into it.
A lot. This has been on the docket for quite some time, and a lot of people bagged on our previous tripod line, not realizing how much effort was being made into making sure that this release was just totally above and beyond better. And it's clear that you can tell when you start using them that they spend a lot of time getting this right.
Yeah, I'll get you some stuff to play with. My stuff's all with Brady right now, but I think you'll be impressed.
From my perspective as a Western hunter, just my perception of Vortex coming out with a high-quality tripod and tripod head tells me that Vortex is serious about the Western hunter.
For sure.
And I'm not a Vortex guy, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I'm talking about being a Western hunter who hunts all around the West, and I see a company specifically say we are going into the tripod market. We are going into the bino adapter market. We are going into the accessory market. Tells me that the focus of Vortex Optics is aimed and directed towards a Western hunter.
It's definitely a major piece of the pie.
And that no takes a guy like me who sits back and looks and goes, I'm leaning more on the side of being a Vortex cheerleader. When they put their foot forward saying they see that as being important, where other companies, maybe that's not a focus of theirs, and I say, who's focused on Western hunting? Thoughts?
No, I think it's pretty clear that we're going after the Western hunting market quite hard. I mean, the UHD was a huge step in that direction. The Razer Lightweight Hunter and then LHT was a huge step in that direction. Yeah. The 2 tripods this year that heavily apply to that would be the Summit Carbon and the Ridgeview Carbon. The Summit's a micro. It's that ultra lightweight, more of a sitting, kneeling deal. The Summit is actually extremely tall, gets up to over 73 inches. So even the tallest, people can stand behind that in glass should they need to. Then getting
love that
into
when he says that, should they need to.
Right. Well, I know you're not a standing glassing guy. Sorry, I always throw that in there for points. But and then you're absolutely right. The adapters, we put out a post and stud type binocular adapter this year. It's been extremely well received.
I've actually gotten a few messages about that. It seems like those the adapters themselves will work with other optics as well.
100%. 100%. Yep.
Which I thought was interesting, and I didn't know that at the time when I was getting a few messages on Instagram and people sending me stuff. pretty refreshing, though, to know that a company has the foresight to say, we want to make this where it will adapt to lots of different binoculars and even different companies.
Yeah, it does. And so what we're doing is we're shipping the post and stud as a combo. So when you buy the first time, you buy the package and it has one post in it and one stud. And then you can buy additional studs after that should you need to attach a pair of 18s or 10s or whatever else you want to hook to that tripod.
Well, it was, and it was, I was kind of pleasantly surprised when I opened up my, I don't want to call it my gift basket, but there was a lot of tripod.
hand delivered that gift basket.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff shows up, and I'm, you get back into the house, and you're taking everything apart, and I'm like, oh, there's a Bino adapter in here. So, it allows you to do a lot of different stuff now, and it's been very well received, and I can't have enough of them now. Yeah,
there's a few posts and studs out there, right? And I think they all kind of have their. You can see the evolution of the technology. Ours is a little different in that the stud is splined. So the way that the post locks into it's a little bit different. It's a little bit a different way of securing it. There's no button by definition.
And it doesn't snap in.
So it's extremely positive, and it locks down very tight once you screw that top piece down. So it's just a different way of going about mounting a bino to a tripod.
Is it an adapter that you see yourself once you get it on your binocular? Is it something you see that stays on?
The stud.
The stud, yes.
The post, I typically leave my post on my tripod for the hunt, and then if I have to get back in a UTV or an ATV, I take it off, put it in my pocket. But all of our new tripods, the heads are all Arca Swiss. So if you have existing Arca Swiss adapters, you can hook that post to that. If you have an Arca Swiss rifle that has a rail on it, you can slide it right into the head that way. But those small... ours ship with Arca Swiss plates. Every tripod does, and they're pretty long, which is great for a spotter. I've been enjoying the Suray Micro Arca Swiss adapter for the studs because it just fits in a pocket or the Bino harness side pocket a little bit easier. That's all personal preference stuff. But
we've always wanted to. I mean, in this one, actually, the plate that I'm looking at right here is actually more like the size of a. It's kind of in between the TY50 and the TY70 that comes with that VA5 head.
Right, great for a spotter or a hog saddle or
exactly.
Something like that.
But the other one, Jay, is just a little bit smaller than this. It's a TY50 Pro, and it allows you to not have a Bino adapter and then have a big giant plate on it where it's real awkward if you're going to put it in a pocket. So it actually works out really, really nice.
And for everyone listening out there, I mean, when you start talking about plates and size of plates, my personal preference is I want to put as long of a plate as I possibly can for what I'm doing. I feel like the longer the plate, the more stable your platform is. I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of weight for more stability. But I do see applications for a shorter plate, if you will, like the Suray 50. But it is nice to know that Vortex has the foresight to make it Arca Swiss compatible. And what you're telling me is that, and I'm looking at the Vortex tripod head right now in Cody's hand, is that even if it's Arca Swiss, that there's a lot of different variables. Meaning I could put a Suray 50 or a 70 on that tripod head right now.
For sure. Yep. Yeah. The Arca Swiss has been an awesome standard for a lot of companies to get behind and allow a whole lot of transition ability for the end user based on other gear they may have, and then using it with a new piece of gear, existing piece of gear.
And look, I mean, as a user. And then a guy who has worked in the industry for the last, we're going on getting close to, 12 or 13, 14 years now. The issue is you've always wanted a system and a compatibility. If there's one thing that I get that's, I don't know, it's not a complaint, but it's like, oh, we're desperately looking for this. And really what it comes down to is guys want to be able to adapt either their tripod or their systems and now you have a company that's listening and they're doing their thing and making it Arca Swiss. And if everybody doesn't know this, the two most common measured threads and thread holes in the industry are 1/4 inch and 3/8. And aside from that, everything will pretty much be compatible, except for there's just a few parts in there that need to be able to either be 3/8 or 1/4 20, and you're good to go.
Plates have always kind of been a sticking point, though. I mean, I can remember even last year, our 2020 tripod offering line, each tripod had a separate plate.
Yeah.
Now we have all these tripods that take one plate. I have one plate SKU. It's easier on the retailer, which that's my mind. I'm always thinking about the retailer. But from a consumer standpoint, you're golden. If you had if we're talking about our product, you have the Ridgeview and you have the Summit, and you're going to go on a sheep hunt, and you decide you want to take your lighter weight tripod, you're not changing adapters on your spotter. You're not changing adapters for your rifle. Everything's just kind of compatible across the board and a whole lot easier.
Well, like I said, from my perspective, it's exciting to see that Vortex listened and had the foresight to listen and listen effectively and come out with product that's compatible. And I think it's going to be big for Vortex. So, kudos, pass it along to them that I think they did a good job. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Will do.
Next question. I want to get into some high-quality optics, but I don't have the cash to lay out. If I were to spend $600 or $700 on binos and a spotter with the plan of selling and upgrading in a couple years, what would you recommend for Western spot and stock hunting, mainly elk and mule deer?
In that,
Wait a minute, just
so
so I heard that right.
$600 to $700 on bino and spotter. I think that's unrealistic.
I'm going to encourage him to look at the Viper 1250 and the Viper 1250 only. And just get into one unit.
And we're on the same boat with that. Like, if you've got that much, I would try to go with the best binocular you can for that, and that's going to be that 1250.
Yeah, the Viper 1250 would be an excellent unit to start with. Quite frankly, it's funny, I did a police department demo where we actually spray painted the outside, and this isn't to talk away from the quality of the optic. It's just sometimes there's some anatomy involved in that equation, and quite a few of the cops enjoyed the Viper more than they enjoyed the Razer that was next to it. Now, they were gentlemen who didn't hunt and barely ever looked through binos and all that stuff, but it's very interesting sometimes to have somebody who sits behind something and goes, well, I like this one better,
When you yourself think you know the answer or what they should be telling you, they're telling you something different.
Right. And something that, like, price point and build quality on the Razer is obviously better than a Viper. There's no way around it. The glass is better, the coatings are better, but that gentleman's anatomy, and he was fired up wanting to fight about it. This is the better unit. And they were all betting money on which one was the higher priced unit. And he, so the Viper's an excellent product for the money. Comes with a chest rig. You're going to get going, and as you grow into the sport, you may find you need a spotter. You may find that you're happier than.
Yeah, I think I find that when people ask the question, hey, I want to get away from I call it like the old, like the blister pack, hanging on the whatever binocular, and I want to put myself into something that's going to do good, but it's going to last me a long time. For so many years, we've started with the Viper HDs.
In that price point he's talking about, there's such nothing that touches it.
Yeah, it's been such a really good go-to piece of glass that that's a top choice.
Okay, so that's covering the binos. If it's $600 to $700 on a spotting scope,
because really the Viper's a little bit more.
Yeah, you'd be a little bit more money just for the Viper spotter itself, and those, again, phenomenal in their weight class. We're not going to get into a decent bino and a decent spotter for just a $700 bill.
If you to spend it on each,
I would
$500 to $700 on
and
each.
A pair of bino. If you could only have one or the other, having a pair of binos would be more useful than just having a spotter.
And that's exactly what I was pointing out. Yesterday, I had a conversation almost verbatim with what this guy's saying. And literally had the conversation of saying, look, I wouldn't really worry about a spotting scope right now. I would go buy the best piece of glass for that, that money that you got, and then reassess and save for the next year.
Well, how many accomplished hunters do you guys know that do work with just a 12?
Put it on a tripod, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I really like that idea."
Right.
You've really just saved me a lot of heartache, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well that's great." So we got him hooked up, got him sent along the right way, and I think he'll do very well with that. At the very minimum, he'll be able to see a lot of game with not a headache from hand holding them for the next year.
And a Viper HD 1250 is a very nice size. You can put it on your chest without it being a burden. You can carry it in a pack without being a burden.
Yep.
And you can freehand it without it being a burden. And
100%.
So it's just a great size, great weight. I don't know that he would want for anything for a long time with that.
No, he'll do good.
Vortex versus Swarovski. Any spotting scope that competes.
I think our Razer line runs. We don't play in the BTX world, so we don't have a dual eye, super large objective offering. So we can't play there. We've never tried. I'm confident we could if and when we do. I'm sure it will be a great product.
I'm looking at your face right now, really trying to judge if you've got a poker face or not. I watched you the whole time.
Well,
what's your
conclusion, Jay?
I don't know. You have a good poker face.
Perfect.
Okay,
let's get the cards out. No, I can truthfully tell you I don't know. I don't know if there's a project there. I truthfully do not. But I'm confident if we did it would be a great product. But I do believe our Razers run with their 85s.
Look, it comes back to, again, and I say this all the time. When you're doing those things, to me, it's about buy the best you can afford and move on. It's not like, see, that's the thing is that people want to compare, and I get it, but I will say this. When you have them side by side, or you have the opportunity to do it, there might be small little intangibles, but it's not like if you're using the Vortex and I got the Swarovski, it's not like, oh my God, I can't see that animal.
No, and I've watched many a time watched a guy with a Vortex product find it before the guy with the Swaro, and I've watched guys with the Swaro product find it before the guy with the Vortex. And you could throw Loophole or anybody in there. There's a whole lot of technique involved in glassing, which you two know better than even most. But I also think there's some anatomy involved, and with spotters specifically as a category, I find getting behind them is where it's at, and I wouldn't worry as much about the sticker or the brand. I'd get, obviously I'm very loyal to the Vortex brand, but I like to see people get what they need, and that's one where I always need to get behind it and spend some time with it.
And I would just add to this that I would always say this. If your choice is between a Viper and a Razer, and you're glassing long range and doing those kind of things, there's one thing about long range glassing, the better glass does win. I think it...
Well, fatigue, right? Fatigue's a huge thing.
So I just think that there's a certain level, like if it's the difference between like a Viper and a Razer, I'm taking the Razer all day long. Right. I will take that glass every day.
Right. Question here, is the Strike Eagle Gen 2 worth upgrading from the Gen 1?
It is. That's an excellent scope. They're referring to the 5-25 that we currently offer, which is now a first focal plane option. It's 34 mil tube, locking turret. It's an incredible scope, especially for the money.
A lot of value.
And the back order speaks to that as well. That's actually, without running a report, I would bet today's dinner that's the most back ordered precision rifle scope in the line right now.
There's a lot of people looking for scopes that are in that
range and price point.
That range and price point. That's a big deal.
But feature packed. I mean, to be 100%. In a locking turret, first focal plane, zero stop, windage related reticle, and a Christmas tree type reticle that you can hold and call with. It's a hard scope to, again, I've said it a couple times this podcast, not trying to be repetitive.
A lot of bells and whistles.
Hard to want for anything.
Yeah.
Best accessories for the Viper series tripod, ?
Best.
We don't make a Viper tripod.
No, it says best accessories for Viper series ? Tripod ?
Copy. So if it was let's say if it was a 1250, I would be into our Pro adapter that we talked about, the stud and the post. and I would be into probably the Summit. If you're a ultra lightweight guy, but if you're going to think about standing behind that thing at all, then the Ridgeview. The Ridgeview will get you low enough to sit plenty. It spreads out amazing, but it also gives you the ability to stand, and you can shoot off it with that load ability. So I have a hard time getting away from the Ridgeview. I don't want for anything when I have that tripod out. That's my theme today. Want for anything.
I like
Must have been on my mirror when I brush my teeth. Can't get away from that.
And by the way, there's just so everybody, Vortex is still selling the. It's now called the Sport Adapter.
Mm-hmm.
So in it, that's the cylinder with the stem that you would screw in to the front of the binocular, and I think that still. I haven't tried the Pro Adapter yet, but I know it'll work on the Diamondback series.
Absolutely.
But that, if somebody's looking for a more economical option, they still have the Bino Adapter that will work for the Diamondbacks or work for any of them really. But they didn't get rid of that option; it's still there. It's just they brought in the other option. So.
But the new Bino Adapter, will it work with every Vortex optic?
Bino, yes.
Bino.
Yep. Yeah, and keep in mind with the new one, the Pro that we're talking about, which is the stud in the post, way better retention, way more security. So, God forbid your tripod gets knocked over or bumped, or you forget your binos are on there and pick it up with your binos attached. That Pro adapter is going to be a better security for you.
Wait a minute. I'm kind of catching maybe a theme that maybe there's some people out there that might have used a prior product or maybe let's just call it a less quality product. What you're saying is the new adapter is light years better than the other one?
I'm talking about over our current Sport. So the Sport is great for mounting to the tripod, but the retention is not there.
Well,
so if you're going to put...
I don't know how to explain this. The best way to do it is that the old one had a cylinder that went down and went, and sat in its own cylinder. Mm-hmm. Well, if the Bino tipped, it could essentially come away from there. So now you have, when you screw the top shut, on the new Bino adapter, it does that. But they still make the old one.
Gotcha.
And it's still a great economical option for people if they're. I just saying that we've got options.
Right. No, yeah. And I don't want to take away from one or the other. They both have their place. But as you get up into if you're going to make the investment in a substantial Bino, it makes sense
the Pro Bino adapter for sure.
Really attach it to the tripod.
Yep.
Why Razer Binos over Vipers?
It's just natural progression, just like in any product line. You could apply it to doorknobs that are different price points. You have material quality, tolerances, and in this case, it's glass quality and coating quality on top of material quality and tolerances. It's just
I'm going to throw one more at you.
That's meant to be
there's something about like the Razer 1042. The ergonomics and the way that they feel. It's one of my favorite glasses to handhold and do, and they're lightweight, and I just always liked the Razer. And I don't know if it's because it's not like it's a different. I don't even know if there's a different word for it, but it's rubberized, but it's not.
Oh, there's a higher end coating on the outside. The whole project is there's more detail, more tension, and absolutely
feels solid. And not that the Vipers don't, but it's. That there's something about the Razers. I've just always really, really liked their ergonomics.
When will inventory levels? This question: when will inventory levels be better for direct orders versus dealer directs, which are stocked?
Oh, he must be talking about some of the he must be
maybe he's an employee or something. Because we don't sell direct to the consumer. Staff at retailers are allowed to buy. A piece a year direct, but I guess I'd have to know his situation.
And here's the thing is if you're just talking inventory levels, I think I can speak for Vortex. They're working on it as hard and as fast, and coming out of that as best they can, and it'll take time. It's just going to take a time for that to happen.
There's not a product in the world that hasn't been affected by what the craziness over the last 365 days has been.
Exactly. I have a buddy that sells toy haulers, and they're up 311%. And so no business can plan for that type of growth. Inventory and supply
buying
chains
velocity across the board. Who's your? I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, and I think I just got a call from him.
Nick from Ride Now Power
Yeah,
Sports.
I mean, he was telling. I mean, I asked him, I'm like, hey, so if I came down, he's like, well, he goes, if you tell me what you want, I'll be able to do this. And I was like, holy cow. He goes, Cody, you just can't believe how many people have done this.
Look at everything. Look at the price of a sheet of plywood right now. Guys, we just have to.
The one that blew me away was
sandwich.
As simple as this sounds. The one that blew me away was bikes.
Bicycles.
Our local shop right down my house. Love 'em to death. All my kids' flat tires and the whole thing. My wife walks in with the bikes, getting a whole bunch of flats and the whole. She goes, "Oh, this is so great! You have a whole truck here that's emptying into the deal." And the woman looks her straight in the face and she said, "Those aren't for filling the showroom.
They're also
those are pre-sold."
Yeah,
and I mean, it was like an entire semi, all stacked, and my wife was just like, "Holy cow!" Mm-hmm. And then you looked on the other half. And the amount of people getting their bikes repaired took up half of the showroom. Now I've been on there what I would consider a busy Saturday on a normal time of year, and it's maybe a quarter of that. It's incredible. It's happening everywhere.
We kind of talked about this next question, but are the new UHD binoculars comparable to the Saguaros?
Yeah,
I would say yes every day of the week.
I think
that new prism is phenomenal.
Yeah, the new prism is good. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pull punches and not, tell the truth and the whole thing. Do I think the edge-to-edge clarity is a little better on the Swarovskis? Sure. But I think I sell these things every day. And again, when we go through the what does the guy want? What's he got to spend? What's he want to do? How much is he going to use them? I sell a ton of the 1856 UHDs. So,
can I just throw out there that I don't think the edge-to-edge clarity on the Swarovski is better? Am I allowed to say that?
Noted.
No, I mean it's just look. I mean it just is what it is.
Come on, I'm not going to miss that opportunity.
No, you're good.
My Vortex Ranger 1000 has not read distances over 650. And struggles a bit in low light, especially on dark targets such as wild boar. What do I gain by upgrading?
So you got to keep in mind with laser rangefinders, the 1000 annotation revolves around typically a metal or a reflective target to get out to that max range. So on an animal, I would expect a Ranger 1000 to be in that 500-yard range. So if it's doing that, it's working as designed. If you're working outside of those parameters, then an upgrade would be beneficial. So, for instance, the current Ranger 1800, I would not expect to work on a deer past about 900, maybe 950. On a dumpster or on an RV, I would expect to get 1800.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, certain rocks, certain compacted dirt, there are variations in those, but that's just the generic answer.
It's reflective capabilities, right?
Correct.
Well, and I would add to, and I don't know what he's doing, and I suppose we should ask the question: is he hand holding? Is he not? And maybe there's a thing there. I would always tell a guy when you're past those, certainly past 650, 700 yards, are you maybe trying to steady it on something, or are you? I think those things matter, and certainly, I think they're important to try. So I would ask that guy, look, if are you trying to steady them as best you can, and if it's not just handhold, I would say try it.
What would you recommend he bump up to?
I would ask him what he's doing. That 1800, again, going to give you that 900, 950 on an animal type performance. The Razer 4000 has been a very, very good unit.
I've been using that, and that sucker's good.
It's lightning fast.
It is.
And I use it a lot for planning.
I think it might be the fastest of any rangefinder that I know of.
I think cranks. It cranks. So I would encourage him, if he's finding the limitations of a 1000, it might just be worth jumping up into a Razer 4000, getting better glass with a better coating, with a faster response, better low light capability. He hit on that low light deal there for that individual. I would encourage you to reach out to Vortex customer service, and we'd like to take a look at that thing for you just to ensure that it's working as it should for a Razer 1000, or excuse me, Ranger 1000. Because if it's not, we want to get that fixed for you as quick as we can.
Absolutely.
So,
talk about the Vortex warranty.
Yeah, it's unconditional. It's lifetime. There's no receipt required. The only thing that's required is that it does not appear to be intentional. If you want to brag about our warranty and tell your buddy and you hit your rangefinder with a baseball bat, that's on you. Otherwise, we'll take care of it, and quickly, lightning quickly. So, and there's 150,000 success stories there where
fast.
Guys are, I've had, hey, I opened my Pelican case and TSA must have sat on my, the TSA elephant sat on my scope and it's in 100 pieces. I just got off an airplane. I'm on the way to a hunt. I'm in Sitka, Alaska. What can I do? And I've seen Vortex do incredible things to take care of those scenarios. I've done stuff in hunts. I had a guy in Unit 1 that needed the eyepiece of a Razer 85. He dropped just the eyepiece, putting it on, and broke it. And they sent one to my house because they couldn't find anywhere to send it to in Unit 1, and we drove it out to them. That's just the way the company operates. So
that's awesome.
How do you think having that mentality with the warranty has helped Vortex gain customers' trust and love?
It's huge. If you go on and look at the testimonial page, there's just a plethora of examples there.
Yeah, there's
it's built quite the following. And I think the other thing you can look at is there's quite a few companies that are trying to or have tried to replicate that. I think that speaks for itself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a validation there that people are like, well, they're going to stand behind it regardless. And I think that there's a general thinking that they could, literally could throw it down the street and they're going to fix it. But the truth of it is that I've seen some really messed up glass get fixed or if not just completely replaced, and it's blown people away. And
stuff that's even out of anybody's control. The big house fires in California, we replaced, and I don't know what the number is, but it's many optics out of that out of those wildfires. Vehicle fires. I've seen us work on just the wildest stuff. Also seen guys that leave their bino for whatever reason next to the target stand and their buddy shoots it and that gets fixed. And so, there's just the stories and the stuff you hear.
Sure that wasn't on purpose?
I may have asked some questions, but that's why I'm not the guy in that department, because the people that work in that department are just incredible humans. They have the patience of angels, and they just run with helping people out, and they enjoy it. So I can honestly say this. First of all, I don't get inundated with stuff. But of all the interactions that I've had and that, Go Hunts customers, has always been a positive experience. Yeah, and you have the opportunity to make customer for life, right? Standing behind your product, especially if it's a manufacturing issue, which, quite frankly, we have a very, very low manufacturing fail rates, but inevitably something happens with the amount of products that we produce.
Yep.
And the insight that they provide, and I've seen the engineers tell the customer, you taught us X. And most companies aren't going to do that, Right. So it's just, again, it takes us back to that humble approach. It's just you can't say enough good things about it.
I think especially if you're getting a certain product back and it's got this, and they apply that to the next generations, you don't get any better.
Yeah, and it makes, from me and Cody's standpoint, Cody being a retailer for Vortex and me being the guy that tries to keep Cody happy, full-time job, by the way. When Cody has a problem, he's got a Go Hunt customer that's on the way to a hunt and has an issue, and he calls me now we're all in this deal trying to get the consumer taken care of, and knowing that the mothership has both my back and Cody's back 1,000% makes our lives.
Yeah,
you know,
I
it's
was
a little
going to say,
easier to operate
I'm
that
not
way.
even sure that I've ever had a pushback
I haven't.
on not trying to get somebody taken care of.
No.
Honestly.
No.
It's been pretty awesome.
Guys, that concludes our Q&A. Cody, I want to give you a chance if you've got some concluding thoughts here. Thanks for coming.
No, I just, guys, our customers are so fun and so, I mean, the stories I get, the scenarios I get, it's just, it's a great place to be a part of. And, we keep trying to put out the best content. We put out as much as we can. We try to provide a good service, and I can't thank our customers enough for making our company and our job, and allowing us to have relationships like Vortex and keep doing what we're doing, because at the end of the day, I'm a guy who loves hunting and I love optics, and I've always had a thing for glassing, and it's just a dream job as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome.
I get to deal with guys like this across the table at me,
Final thoughts
saying
for you,
I'm difficult.
I don't have much, Jay. It's good to see you guys. It's been a little bit.
Been too long.
Little bit of time. But thanks again for having me and having Vortex and the effort that you put into to go hunt, and Cody, just again, you and I, we go round and round, but I appreciate you. I appreciate
buddy,
what you guys are doing. You and Chris.
Our
and the team
going
at
round
Go
and
Hunt.
round is always fun,
It's a good time.
but
It's good for the customer.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
one thing about Jaryd: you will not ask a question if you are not looking for the truth. Don't ask it.
That's all I want people to say at my funeral. Nobody's gonna call me the best looking, but as long as I was honest, I'll rest happy.
And we do need to go out and have a beer or something. Just say, hey, we don't do that enough.
I got a pink umbrella for you. We'll go.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, thanks
Yeah.
for listening out there. Thanks for you two for coming out here. And Poppy, you put her to sleep, both of you. You can see right here, she's just snoring.
She was not liking me being here at first. She was wondering who the heck I was.
Yeah, but thanks for coming out. I think we covered some good ground. It's always great having you guys out here. Guys, remember, if you have optics needs, give Cody a call. You can text him on his cell phone, 602-399-3699. You can also call the shop directly, 702-847-8747. Email at optics@gohunt.com. Guys, God bless. Thanks.
Jay, thank you for the opportunity, bud.
All right.
Always.